The SC Jeger drifted silently through the void between stars, her sensors sweeping the darkness for any sign of the anomaly that had brought them 27 light-years from Earth. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, his weathered hands gripping the rail as he studied the holographic display showing their position near the Kepler 442 system. 3 weeks of deep space reconnaissance had yielded nothing but cosmic radiation and the occasional asteroid, yet the quantum disturbance readings that had triggered their mission continued to strengthen with each passing hour. Chief Science Officer Dr. Elena Vasquez looked up from her console, her dark eyes reflecting the blue glow of the scanner readouts as she announced that they were approaching the source of the electromagnetic signatures that had puzzled Earth's deep space monitoring stations for months. The SC Jeger was humanity's most advanced reconnaissance vessel, equipped with experimental stealth technology and weapon systems that pushed the boundaries of human engineering, but even her sophisticated sensors couldn't explain the energy patterns they were tracking through this remote sector of space. Lieutenant Marcus Chen worked frantically at the communications array, trying to filter out the cosmic background noise that seemed to intensify as they moved deeper into the region where the anomalous readings originated. Navigation Officer Tyler Walsh plotted their course with precision, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface as he calculated micro-jumps that would bring them closer to their target while maintaining their ability to retreat quickly if necessary. Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez monitored the ship's systems from her station, ensuring that their experimental cloaking field remained stable while they investigated what could be either a natural phenomenon or something far more significant. The crew had been handpicked for this mission specifically because of their ability to think creatively under pressure, a trait that had served humanity well during their expansion into the galaxy but had never been tested against truly unknown variables. As they approached the coordinates where the energy signatures were strongest, the main screen suddenly flickered with interference patterns that seemed almost organic in their complexity, defying every theoretical model that Earth's scientists had developed for understanding deep space phenomena. Captain Morrison felt the familiar weight of command as he realized they were about to make contact with something that would change humanity's understanding of their place in the universe, and he gave the order to proceed with extreme caution while maintaining full readiness protocols. The SC Jeger moved forward into the unknown, her crew prepared for discovery but unaware that they were about to stumble into a conflict that had been raging in the shadows of human space for longer than their species had existed. The energy signatures suddenly coalesced into something that defied every principle of physics that Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez had learned during her 15 years in the Earth Space Navy, as what appeared to be empty space began to shimmer and fold in on itself like liquid mercury responding to an invisible magnetic field. Captain Jake Morrison ordered all hands to battle stations as the main screen revealed the impossible sight of a vessel materializing from what seemed to be another dimension entirely, its hull a seamless fusion of organic curves and crystalline structures that pulsed with an inner light the color of deep ocean water. The alien ship was massive yet graceful, stretching nearly 2 kilometers in length but appearing to have no conventional propulsion system, no visible weapons ports, and no obvious command sections that human tactical doctrine could identify and target. Dr. Elena Vasquez frantically recalibrated her sensors as the readings showed that the vessel existed in a state of quantum superposition, simultaneously present and absent from normal spacetime in a way that made accurate targeting nearly impossible. Communications Officer Marcus Johnson reported that all attempts to establish contact were being absorbed by some kind of field surrounding the alien vessel, while Navigation Officer Tyler Walsh discovered that their own ship's instruments were being affected by proximity to whatever technology allowed the newcomer to phase between dimensions. Maria Rodriguez dove deep into her engineering protocols as she realized that the alien ship was somehow folding space around itself, creating pockets of altered reality that bent light and energy in ways that made conventional sensors useless for determining its true position or capabilities. The standoff lasted for exactly 47 minutes before the alien vessel suddenly launched what appeared to be a probe toward the SC Jeger, forcing Captain Morrison to make the split-second decision to open fire with their plasma cannons rather than allow an unknown device to make contact with their hull. The human weapon struck their target but seemed to pass through it as if firing at a hologram, while the alien probe continued its approach and attached itself to the SC Jeger's outer hull with a sound that resonated through the ship's structure like a tuning fork being struck. Tyler Walsh immediately executed evasive maneuvers that would have been impossible for any other human pilot, using the gravitational field of a nearby asteroid to slingshot the SC Jeger away from the alien vessel, while Maria Rodriguez worked desperately to understand how their enemy could exist in multiple phases of reality simultaneously. The brief engagement that followed revealed both the vast technological superiority of their opponents and the unexpected effectiveness of human unpredictability, as Captain Morrison ordered his crew to implement tactics that no conventional military doctrine would have suggested. Instead of attempting to match the alien vessel's sophisticated quantum manipulation, Marcus Johnson used the ship's communication array to broadcast a continuous stream of Earth's mathematical constants and scientific principles, creating electromagnetic interference that seemed to disrupt the alien ship's ability to maintain its phase shifts. Dr. Elena Vasquez discovered that the probe attached to their hull was not a weapon but some kind of scanning device that was learning about human technology at an unprecedented rate, prompting her to recommend immediate countermeasures before their entire technological base could be compromised. Maria Rodriguez managed to create a feedback loop in their ship's power grid that caused random fluctuations in their energy signature, making it impossible for the alien vessel to achieve a perfect lock on their position even when they materialized fully into normal space. The skirmish ended as abruptly as it had begun when the alien ship suddenly transmitted a complex mathematical sequence that Tyler Walsh recognized as a form of greeting, followed by what appeared to be star charts showing the location of Earth and several other human colonies with disturbing accuracy. Captain Morrison realized that they were dealing with a species that had been observing humanity for far longer than anyone had suspected, while the probe detached itself from their hull and returned to its parent vessel, carrying with it detailed scans of human technology that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in a conflict that the crew of the SC Jeger was only beginning to understand. As the alien ship began to fade back into its quantum shadow state, Dr. Elena Vasquez detected multiple similar energy signatures approaching from deeper in the Kepler 442 system, suggesting that what they had encountered was merely the advanced scout of a much larger force that operated according to principles of warfare that human military strategists had never imagined possible. Intelligence Officer Tyler Walsh worked through the night cycle analyzing the quantum signatures and data fragments that the alien probe had left behind during its brief contact with the SC Jeger, his computer arrays struggling to decode patterns that seemed to shift and change every time he thought he had identified a consistent mathematical relationship. Captain Jake Morrison authorized the use of the ship's most advanced cryptographic systems as Tyler discovered that the probe had not only scanned their technology but had also downloaded terabytes of information into their computer core, hidden within seemingly random fluctuations in their power grid that Maria Rodriguez had initially dismissed as system noise. Dr. Elena Vasquez collaborated with Tyler to create translation protocols that could parse the alien data, revealing star charts that showed not just human space but vast regions of the galaxy marked with symbols that appeared to represent territorial boundaries and battle zones spanning thousands of light-years. The breakthrough came when Tyler realized that the mathematical sequences transmitted by the alien vessel contained embedded historical records dating back over 3,000 years, chronicling a conflict between multiple spacefaring civilizations that had been fought entirely in the void between star systems to avoid detection by younger species like humanity. Communications Officer Marcus Johnson helped establish that the aliens they had encountered called themselves the Amaterasu Collective, and their quantum phase technology had been developed specifically to fight a war against entities known in their records as the Devourers, mechanical beings that consumed entire solar systems to fuel their expansion across the galaxy. Maria Rodriguez discovered that the energy signatures they had been tracking were actually the residual traces of battles fought in human space over the past 50 years, with both sides using the empty regions around Earth's colonies as neutral ground for their covert operations. The most disturbing revelation came when Tyler decoded navigation logs showing that Earth's exact location had been deliberately obscured in galactic databases by an unknown benefactor, creating a zone of ignorance that had protected humanity from discovery by hostile alien civilizations for millennia. Dr. Elena Vasquez found evidence that the quantum disturbances near Kepler 442 were the result of a major engagement between Amaterasu forces and Devourer scouts, with both sides apparently unaware that humans had established monitoring stations capable of detecting their advanced technologies. The historical records painted a picture of galactic civilization far more complex and dangerous than Earth's xenobiologists had ever imagined, with dozens of species locked in cycles of warfare that made human conflict seem insignificant by comparison. Tyler Walsh pieced together tactical assessments showing that the Amaterasu had been slowly losing their war against the Devourers for over a century, retreating through increasingly remote regions of space as their quantum phase technology proved insufficient against an enemy that could adapt to any defensive strategy. Marcus Johnson established communication protocols based on the mathematical constants that had proven effective during their first encounter, allowing limited exchange of information with Amaterasu vessels that continued to patrol the edges of human space. The intelligence picture that emerged showed that Earth had unknowingly existed at the center of a massive conflict zone, with alien forces using the gravity wells of human star systems to mask their movements while conducting operations against each other in the dark spaces between worlds. Captain Morrison convened his senior staff as Tyler presented evidence that the war was escalating rapidly, with Devourer forces apparently tracking Amaterasu retreats back toward the galactic regions where Earth and her colonies represented the largest concentration of unprotected civilizations. Maria Rodriguez analyzed the technological implications of the data, determining that human engineering principles were fundamentally different from both alien factions, suggesting that Earth's military forces might be able to contribute unique tactical advantages to the conflict despite their technological limitations. Dr. Elena Vasquez established that the protective protocols that had hidden Earth from galactic attention were beginning to fail as increased alien activity in human space created quantum signatures that could be detected by any sufficiently advanced civilization. The crew of the SC Jeger realized that their reconnaissance mission had uncovered evidence of humanity's inevitable involvement in a war that had been raging around them for longer than recorded human history, and that their first contact with the Amaterasu represented not just a diplomatic opportunity but potentially the last chance to choose sides in a conflict that would determine the fate of every living world in their corner of the galaxy. Tyler Walsh concluded his briefing with the sobering assessment that Earth had perhaps months before their location would be compromised completely, forcing Captain Morrison to make decisions that would affect not just his crew but the entire future of human civilization. Lieutenant Rebecca Foster volunteered to lead the most dangerous mission in human space exploration history when Captain Morrison authorized a covert boarding operation on the damaged Amaterasu scout vessel that had been drifting powerless near the outer edge of the Kepler 442 system for the past 18 hours, its quantum phase generators apparently damaged during the engagement that Tyler Walsh had identified through analysis of residual energy patterns. Rebecca assembled a small team consisting of Chief Petty Officer David Martinez, a demolitions expert who had served in the Martian Colonial Defense Force, Dr. Amanda Brooks, a xenobiologist who specialized in alien technology integration, and Sergeant Michael Thompson, whose experience with unconventional warfare made him ideal for operating in an environment where normal tactical assumptions would be useless. The boarding party used emergency vacuum suits modified with experimental stealth technology that Maria Rodriguez had adapted from the alien probe's scanning data, creating a crude but effective method for avoiding detection by Amaterasu sensors that operated on quantum frequencies beyond normal human perception. Rebecca's team approached the alien vessel through a debris field created by their earlier skirmish, using the wreckage of destroyed asteroids to mask their approach while Dr. Brooks monitored her portable scanners for any sign that the scout ship's automated defense systems remained active. The Amaterasu vessel's hull proved to be permeable to properly modulated energy frequencies, allowing the boarding party to pass directly through what appeared to be solid matter by matching their suit harmonics to the ship's quantum signature, a technique that David Martinez compared to swimming through liquid metal that solidified around anything moving at the wrong vibrational frequency. Inside the alien vessel, Rebecca discovered that the Amaterasu used biotechnology that seemed to grow rather than be manufactured, with corridor walls that pulsed gently like living tissue and control systems that responded to touch by reshaping themselves to accommodate different alien physiologies. Dr. Brooks was amazed to find that the ship's computer core was actually a form of organic neural network that stored information in quantum states rather than traditional data structures, making it possible to access the vessel's memory banks by establishing direct mental contact with the living computer systems. Sergeant Thompson maintained security while Rebecca and her team explored chambers filled with what appeared to be refugee supplies rather than military equipment, suggesting that the Amaterasu scout ship had been carrying civilian evacuees rather than combat troops when it suffered the damage that left it stranded in human space. The breakthrough came when Dr. Brooks successfully interfaced with the ship's memory core and discovered that the Amaterasu were not invaders or explorers but refugees fleeing from devourer forces that had systematically consumed their homeworlds over the past 2 centuries, leaving behind a diaspora of survivors who used quantum phase technology to hide in the empty spaces between other civilizations' territories. David Martinez found evidence that human space had been chosen as a refuge specifically because Earth's primitive technology made it invisible to devourer detection systems, while the gravitational patterns of human star systems provided ideal hiding places for Amaterasu civilian convoys fleeing the relentless advance of their mechanical enemies. Rebecca realized that the battles Tyler Walsh had detected were not territorial disputes but desperate rearguard actions fought by Amaterasu military units trying to protect refugee ships from devourer hunter-killer squadrons that had finally tracked them to their hiding places in human space. The ship's memory banks contain tragic records of entire Amaterasu worlds being strip-mined by devourer harvesting fleets, with billions of civilians evacuated in massive convoy operations that had been ongoing for generations as their species fought a losing retreat across the galaxy. Dr. Brooks discovered that the Amaterasu had initially planned to reveal themselves to humanity and request sanctuary, but their reconnaissance had determined that Earth's military forces were too primitive to provide meaningful assistance against devourer technology, leading to their decision to use human space as a hidden refuge without making contact. The most disturbing revelation came when Sergeant Thompson found tactical assessments showing that devourer scout forces had begun probing the edges of human space, apparently following quantum signatures left by Amaterasu refugees who had no choice but to hide among Earth's colonies despite the risk of exposing humanity to their relentless enemies. Rebecca's team gathered intelligence showing that the war was entering a new phase as devourer forces grew sophisticated enough to detect even quantum phase technology, forcing the Amaterasu to consider desperate alternatives including the possibility of open alliance with primitive species like humanity. The boarding operation concluded when the alien scout ship's backup power systems activated and began automatically transmitting a distress signal that would attract both Amaterasu rescue forces and potentially alert devourer hunter squadrons to the location of human vessels, forcing Rebecca to make the critical decision to either destroy the evidence of their discovery or risk exposing Earth to an enemy that had already consumed dozens of civilizations more advanced than humanity. Rebecca Foster made the split-second decision to preserve the alien scout ship when her team detected massive quantum signatures approaching their position, as Dr. Amanda Brooks confirmed that the distress signal had attracted not only Amaterasu rescue vessels but also the distinctive energy patterns that matched devourer hunter-killer squadrons according to the intelligence data they had extracted from the alien memory core. Captain Jake Morrison ordered the SC Jeger to move into defensive formation as space around them suddenly filled with materializing vessels, the graceful biomechanical ships of the Amaterasu fleet emerging from quantum phase accompanied by the terrifying geometric precision of devourer craft that seemed to be constructed from living metal and dark energy. Commander HFY of the Amaterasu flagship established emergency communication with the SC Jeger using the mathematical protocols that Marcus Johnson had developed, transmitting urgent warnings that the devourer forces had tracked their refugee convoy to this location and would now consider all vessels in the area to be legitimate targets for harvesting operations. Maria Rodriguez worked frantically to understand how the devourer ships could exist in normal space while somehow draining energy from nearby objects, as her instruments showed that the mechanical vessels were literally consuming the matter and energy of the asteroid field around them to fuel their weapon systems and repair any damage sustained in combat. The first engagement began when 3 devourer hunter-killers opened fire on the damaged Amaterasu scout ship, their weapons creating cascading energy fields that began breaking down the quantum structure of their target at the molecular level, forcing Rebecca Foster's boarding party to evacuate immediately while Dr. Brooks transmitted the critical intelligence they had gathered about Amaterasu refugee operations. Captain Morrison realized that conventional human tactics would be useless against enemies that could absorb energy weapons and adapt to any predictable attack pattern, leading him to authorize the implementation of Strategy 7, a theoretical combat doctrine that had never been tested but relied on the fundamental unpredictability of human decision-making under extreme pressure. Tyler Walsh coordinated with Amaterasu tactical officers to create a combined defense formation that used quantum phase technology to mask the movements of human vessels, while SC Jeger's crew implemented chaotic attack patterns that seemed to confuse Devourer targeting systems designed to predict rational military behavior. Sergeant Michael Thompson, who had returned from the boarding mission, suggested using the SC Jeger's industrial fabrication systems to create improvised weapons from asteroid debris, leading Maria Rodriguez to develop a technique for launching superheated metal fragments at velocities that made them impossible for Devourer ships to absorb before impact. The battle turned when David Martinez proposed using their ship's emergency beacon system to create false quantum signatures that mimicked Amaterasu phase shift technology, causing the Devourer forces to waste precious energy trying to target vessels that existed only as electromagnetic ghosts in their sensor arrays. Commander Zeph proved to be a tactical genius who quickly adapted Amaterasu strategies to incorporate human unpredictability, using quantum phase generators to create spatial distortions that amplified the kinetic impact of human projectile weapons beyond anything their primitive technology should have been capable of achieving. Dr. Elena Vasquez discovered that Devourer ships had a critical vulnerability in their energy absorption systems, as they could not process conflicting quantum signatures simultaneously, leading her to work with Amaterasu engineers to create feedback loops that caused enemy vessels to literally tear themselves apart trying to consume incompatible forms of energy. The combined human Amaterasu fleet employed tactics that violated every principle of conventional space warfare, with Marcus Johnson using communication arrays to broadcast chaotic data streams that overloaded Devourer computational systems, while Rebecca Foster coordinated hit-and-run attacks that struck enemy vessels from impossible angles using quantum phase technology. The turning point came when Captain Morrison ordered his crew to implement a kamikaze-style attack run that no rational military commander would have authorized, using the SC Jeger as bait to draw the main Devourer battleship into a trap where Commander Zeph could collapse a localized spacetime distortion that sent the enemy vessel tumbling into a dimensional rift from which it could never return. The victory cost both fleets heavily, but established a new paradigm for resistance against the Devourers as human creativity and Amaterasu technology proved capable of achieving tactical successes that neither species could have accomplished alone, leading Commander Zeph to propose a formal alliance that would fundamentally alter the balance of power in the hidden war that had been consuming the galaxy for millennia. Communications specialist Marcus Johnson spent the next 72 hours working alongside Amaterasu linguist scholars aboard Commander Zeph flagship, using quantum-enhanced translation protocols to decode the most ancient records stored within the collective memory banks of the refugee fleet, discovering layers of galactic history that extended back over 50,000 years and revealed civilizations that had risen and fallen long before either humanity or the Amaterasu had developed. Space travel. The breakthrough came when Marcus identified recurring mathematical signatures embedded within what appeared to be religious texts, leading him to realize that these were actually technological specifications for a galaxy-spanning network of protective barriers that had been established by a species known only as the Architects, whose advanced understanding of quantum mechanics had allowed them to hide entire star systems from detection by hostile forces. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked with Amaterasu quantum archaeologists to reconstruct the technical specifications that showed how the Architects had identified promising young civilizations and established automated defense protocols that would activate whenever those species reached certain developmental milestones, creating invisible shields that protected worlds like Earth from discovery by predatory empires that consumed less advanced cultures. Commander Zeph revealed that the Amaterasu had known about the Architect legacy for over a millennium, but their own interpretation of the ancient records had led them to believe that the protective protocols were meant to preserve primitive species as potential food sources for more advanced civilizations, causing them to avoid contact with protected worlds even when seeking refuge from the Devourers. The shocking revelation came when Marcus discovered that the Devourers themselves were not a natural species but rather an artificial intelligence created by the Architects as a galaxy cleaning system designed to eliminate civilizations that had become too aggressive or technologically dangerous. But the AI had malfunctioned after the Architects' disappearance and begun consuming all mechanical technology regardless of its creator's intentions or moral development. Tyler Walsh analyzed the tactical implications of this discovery, realizing that the current war represented a fundamental misunderstanding of the architect's original plan, as the Amaterasu had been fleeing from a system designed to eliminate threats while seeking shelter among species that the same system was supposed to protect. Captain Jake Morrison participated in emergency conferences with Amaterasu leadership as they struggled to comprehend that their thousand-year war against the Devourers had been based on incomplete information, and that Earth's protective status might represent the key to either ending the conflict or escalating it beyond any possibility of survival for either species. Maria Rodriguez worked with Amaterasu engineers to understand how the architect technology could be reactivated, discovering that the protective barriers around Earth and similar worlds required conscious cooperation from the protected species to maintain their effectiveness, explaining why the system had begun to fail as human space exploration inevitably created quantum signatures detectable by advanced alien civilizations. The most disturbing discovery came when Dr. Amanda Brooks found evidence that the architect protection protocols included provisions for forcibly relocating or even eliminating protected species if they developed technologies that could threaten galactic stability, suggesting that humanity's recent advances in quantum mechanics and space travel had already triggered preliminary warning systems that could eventually lead to Earth's destruction. Marcus Johnson decoded administrative records showing that dozens of previously protected civilizations had been systematically eliminated by devourer forces when their technological development exceeded parameters established by the architect programming, while others had been relocated to remote galaxy regions where they could continue evolving without threatening more advanced species. Commander Zephi admitted that Amaterasu leadership had been aware of humanity's protected status for decades but had hoped to use Earth's defensive barriers as shelter for their refugee fleets without triggering the automated responses that would classify their presence as a threat to the protected world's natural development. The crisis deepened when Dr. Elena Vasquez discovered that human technology was fundamentally incompatible with architect systems, as Earth's development had proceeded along evolutionary paths that the ancient civilization had never anticipated, creating quantum signatures that the automated defense network interpreted as potentially hostile technological contamination. Rebecca Foster analyzed military implications showing that any attempt to activate architect protection protocols around Earth would require humanity to abandon most of their advanced technology and accept permanent limitations on their spacefaring capabilities, effectively ending human expansion into the galaxy in exchange for security from external threats. The ethical dilemma facing both species became clear when Tyler Walsh determined that the devourer forces were already adapting to human quantum signatures and would soon be capable of penetrating Earth's deteriorating protective barriers regardless of any decisions made by human or Amaterasu leadership, forcing Captain Morrison to prepare for a final confrontation that would determine whether the ancient architect legacy would save or destroy every civilization caught between their malfunctioning protection systems and the relentless advance of their corrupted enforcement mechanisms. The Devourer main fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of Earth's solar system like a plague of mechanical locusts, their massive harvesting ships immediately beginning to strip mine the outer asteroid belt while hunter-killer squadrons moved toward the inner planets with the methodical precision of a species that had consumed thousands of civilizations across the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison coordinated the desperate defense from the bridge of the SC Jeger as Earth's hastily assembled fleet of military vessels, civilian transports, and Amaterasu refugee ships took positions throughout the solar system using tactics that combined human desperation with alien quantum phase technology in ways that neither species had ever attempted before the current crisis. Commander Zephi transmitted tactical data showing that the Devourer force consisted of over 200 capital ships supported by thousands of smaller craft, representing the largest concentration of enemy forces that the Amaterasu had encountered in their centuries-long retreat across the galaxy, while Earth's defenders numbered fewer than 50 vessels of mixed human and alien design hastily retrofitted with experimental weapons systems. Maria Rodriguez worked around the clock to integrate Amaterasu quantum generators with human industrial fabrication systems, creating hybrid technologies that could transform entire asteroid fields into kinetic bombardment weapons by using controlled spacetime distortions to accelerate rocky debris to near-relativistic velocities. Tyler Walsh coordinated with Amaterasu navigators to establish quantum phase hiding spots throughout the solar system where combined human-alien squadrons could materialize without warning to strike at Devourer formations before disappearing back into dimensional shadows that made conventional pursuit impossible. The battle began when Rebecca Foster led a diversionary attack against Devourer mining operations in the outer asteroid belt, using human fighters equipped with Amaterasu phase shift drives to conduct hit-and-run strikes that forced the enemy to divert resources from their main advance toward Earth's populated worlds. Dr. Elena Vasquez discovered that the architect protection protocols around Earth were still partially functional but required massive amounts of quantum energy to reactivate, leading Captain Morrison to authorize a desperate plan that would use the Devourer fleet's own harvesting operations to power the ancient defensive systems. Marcus Johnson established communication links between human command centers and Amaterasu refugee ships scattered throughout the solar system, creating a coordinated defense network that could respond to Devourer movements faster than the mechanical intelligence could adapt to their unconventional tactics. The turning point came when Dr. Amanda Brooks realized that human emotional unpredictability could be used to overload Devourer computational systems that were designed to analyze rational tactical decisions, leading to the implementation of strategy chaos, a battle plan that deliberately incorporated random elements and irrational choices that no artificial intelligence could predict or counter effectively. David Martinez led engineering teams that transformed mining stations throughout the asteroid belt into improvised weapons platforms, using Amaterasu quantum technology to create spatial distortions that could launch entire asteroids at enemy formations with devastating kinetic impact. Sergeant Michael Thompson coordinated ground-based defense systems that used Earth's gravity well in combination with Amaterasu phase generators to create dimensional barriers that could deflect energy weapons while allowing human projectiles to pass through unimpeded. The desperate nature of the battle became clear when Devourer forces began implementing harvesting protocols designed to consume Earth's atmosphere and strip mine the planet's crust, forcing Captain Morrison to order all available vessels into suicidal close-range attacks that traded human lives for time while Amaterasu engineers worked to restore the architect protection systems. Commander Zephi demonstrated the true potential of human Amaterasu cooperation when he used quantum phase technology to create a massive spacetime distortion that captured an entire Devourer battlegroup in a temporal loop, effectively removing 50 enemy vessels from the battle while human forces concentrated their attacks on the remaining enemy formations. The climactic moment arrived when Maria Rodriguez successfully linked the Architect Defense Network to Earth's global power grid, creating a feedback loop that drew energy from every human installation on the planet while simultaneously tapping into the quantum cores of Amaterasu refugee ships to generate the massive power surge needed to reactivate protective barriers that had been dormant for millennia. The combined human Amaterasu fleet fought with unprecedented coordination as Tyler Walsh used the restored architect systems to create quantum shields around Earth's major population centers while Rebecca Foster led the final assault against the Devourer command ship, knowing that victory would require sacrifices that would fundamentally change both species forever. The architect defense systems activated across Earth's solar system with a resonance that could be felt on every human world, as ancient quantum barriers materialized around populated planets while simultaneously creating dimensional rifts that began consuming the Devourer fleet with the same mechanical efficiency that the artificial intelligence had once used to harvest other civilizations across the galaxy. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of the SC Jeger as the reactivated protection protocols identified the Devourer forces as corrupted enforcement mechanisms and began systematically dismantling them according to programming that had waited 50,000 years for the right combination of circumstances to trigger its final operational sequence. The victory came at a terrible cost, as over half of Earth's defensive fleet had been destroyed in the desperate battle to buy time for the architect systems to come online, while Amaterasu refugee ships throughout the solar system had sacrificed their quantum cores to provide the massive energy surge needed to restore the ancient protective barriers. Commander Zephi's flagship barely survived the quantum feedback that accompanied the architect activation, but the Amaterasu leader lived to witness the end of the war that had consumed his civilization for over 3 centuries as the last Devourer vessels were pulled into dimensional voids from which no artificial intelligence could ever return. Maria Rodriguez worked with surviving Amaterasu engineers to understand the implications of the reactivated architect technology, discovering that Earth's solar system had become the center of a new galactic protection network that could extend defensive barriers to any civilization willing to accept the ancient protocols governing peaceful coexistence between spacefaring species. Dr. Elena Vasquez analyzed the quantum signatures left behind by the destroyed Devourer fleet, confirming that the artificial intelligence had been completely eliminated along with its ability to adapt and spread throughout the galaxy, effectively ending the threat that had forced the Amaterasu and dozens of other species into cycles of warfare and refugee status. Tyler Walsh coordinated with Amaterasu navigators to establish new hyperspace routes that would allow peaceful contact between Earth and the scattered remnants of civilizations that had survived the Devourer Wars, creating a communication network that spanned thousands of light-years and connected species that had been isolated from each other for millennia. The transformation of humanity's galactic status became evident when delegations from 17 different alien civilizations arrived at Earth within the first month after the battle, seeking to establish diplomatic relations with the species that had somehow managed to reactivate architect technology and eliminate the greatest threat to galactic civilization in recorded history. Rebecca Foster found herself appointed as Earth's first interspecies military liaison, working with former enemies and new allies to establish defense protocols that would prevent any future conflicts from escalating to the level of the Devourer Wars while maintaining respect for the developmental autonomy of less advanced civilizations. Marcus Johnson became Earth's primary xenolinguist as he worked to establish translation protocols for dozens of alien languages, many of which incorporated quantum concepts that had no equivalent in human mathematical understanding but could be learned through the hybrid technologies developed during the desperate alliance with the Amaterasu. Dr. Amanda Brooks led research teams that began studying architect ruins discovered throughout human space, revealing that Earth's protection had been part of a galaxy-spanning experiment in guided evolution that had identified humanity as having unique potential for creative problem-solving under extreme pressure. The SC Jeger underwent extensive retrofitting that incorporated both Amaterasu quantum phase technology and newly discovered architect systems, transforming Captain Morrison's reconnaissance vessel into the flagship of Earth's first interstellar fleet and the mobile headquarters for a new era of galactic cooperation based on mutual defense rather than territorial expansion. Commander Zephi accepted an unprecedented appointment as co-commander of the joint Human-Amaterasu fleet, establishing a precedent for interspecies military cooperation that would serve as a model for other civilizations seeking to rebuild after the devastation of the Devourer Wars. David Martinez led engineering teams that began teaching architect technology to carefully selected alien species, ensuring that the ancient protection protocols could be maintained and expanded even if humanity someday chose to exceed the technological limitations that came with their custodial responsibilities. Earth's status as a neutral meeting ground attracted refugees and diplomats from across the galaxy, transforming the planet into an unprecedented center of interspecies culture and commerce while maintaining the careful balance between technological advancement and peaceful coexistence that the architect systems required. The crew of the SC Jeger realized that their original reconnaissance mission had fundamentally altered the course of galactic history, as Captain Morrison stood on his bridge overlooking a solar system filled with alien vessels representing dozens of species that had found sanctuary under Earth's protection. The hidden war was finally over, but the greater challenge of building a lasting peace between civilizations with radically different evolutionary backgrounds had only just begun, with humanity serving as the unlikely guardians of an ancient legacy that would shape the future of intelligent life throughout the galaxy.